Hi, this is Matt Donegan from Business Spotlight, and here with Tom. Tom, tell me about your business. Tell me about you.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for inviting me on this. I'm Tom. I'm a chartered accountant, licensed insolvency practitioner by trade. I co-own and operate a business recovery and insolvency practice, a collections business, and a commercial finance brokerage. Started in business in 2007 with my business partner. We operate a bring work to people model from the UK, throughout the UK. We've got people from Sheffield down to the South Coast. We work with SMEs with all things cash flow.
Right. So yours isn't just an insolvency business that just kind of picks up the pieces when it's all gone wrong. You're trying to put things in place in order to allow the entrepreneur, the business to thrive in the future, or how does it work for you?
So, so our core business has been insolvency and business recovery. Started that in 2007 with my business partner Paul. Essentially, most of our work comes from professional referral, typically accountants who provide compliance and general advice to businesses. The reality, as a trained accountant myself, and a lot of the work that accountants do is compliance based and maybe historic. I've got a really wonderful range, and throughout our network, a wonderful range of really high quality accountants that do great work. But the reality is that sometimes businesses only pick the minimum, right, because of cost, and run their businesses out of their bank balance and with a bit of intuition, and that is how you start. A bit of spit and sawdust. Where we get involved as an insolvency firm is when things go wrong. Something's not quite right, and ultimately it's a cash issue. They've run out of cash, or anticipate they're going to run out of cash. Unable to pay your debts when they fall due is probably the definition, the insolvency definition. And I live in a space where, as an insolvency practitioner, I have a number of tools that I can deploy, as well as experience in dealing with all those stakeholders to either kind of rescue, recover a company and its business, maybe the business to survive and move out of a company that is just in too big a hole and start again elsewhere, or to help people restart. There's lots of different processes that people hear about: administration, liquidation, and also the personal consequences, bankruptcy for an individual. So we work in that space primarily. What became clear to my business partner and I is that, what was one of the common causes? It's bad debts. It's very simple, isn't it? A business is doing really well and doesn't get paid, maybe because of an insolvency. So we got we've been interested in getting in the debt collection space, and we've had an opportunity to do that. And also within our business, and all other insolvency practitioners will be appointed over companies where they've got debts to collect in. And what we realize is that, it's a specialist thing, and a lot of insolvency practitioners will use their own team and send out letters. But really, we wanted to focus in that area. So we've set it up as a standalone focused business. And we're working with lenders on collections. We're working with ourselves as an insolvency business, but as one, and other insolvency practitioners. And we're working direct to business in that space.
Right.
Cheapest. Yeah. And then the commercial finance side of it, again, it's a logical progression, because people do come to us with, dare I say, the finance market, the availability of finance has been a varied thing. We're essentially a brokerage in that regard. They go to their local high street bank, if there is such a thing, that they've known for years. And those structures, they work in a specific space, and they stop working in that space. People don't know where to go, but actually maybe they just need some good finance or refinancing. Again, it's to avoid a potential failure, but also in that space to help them grow, improve.
So what you're saying is, but when a company contacts you, when the directors contact you, it's not necessarily the end of the road. There are routes through that a company that's struggling in the current environment for whatever reason could potentially trade out or find a way forward.
Yeah, look, the space where we come in is we're independent. We're there to rescue the business and the entrepreneur and all the stakeholders. Sometimes that means we can rescue the company that's operating in its history. Sometimes maybe the right thing to do is to draw a line to allow all the parties to move forward and restart, and we stand in the space of making sure that's dealt with fairly. We're just there as a guide in a very difficult situation. No one sets up a business to find that difficulty. We can provide some guidance around it. But I would say the majority, I couldn't tell you a stat, but the vast majority of business owners will be in business again, usually in another fashion, maybe some iteration. And a lot of them learn from those challenges and become incredibly successful. So yeah, we get engaged in that space. And we typically support an accountant that's advising alongside.
So talking about learnings, what have been the learnings for you starting your own business? So 2007, you started the business. Started it with you and one other, Paul.
Paul Bailey. Yeah, Paul Bailey, my former colleague and business partner. We, I suppose tracking back, I grew up in a family business, just a small shop, you know, part of a community, delicatessen. We were open 7 days a week in Southeast London, only closed Christmas and Easter. And yeah, business is family and family is business. You know, even, you know, our meal times were around when the shop closed. I got involved in doing the books when I was young. You know, everyone had to just get engaged, and that was my job at 13. Started to understand what you got in through the till every Monday, Tuesday to week, and what we spent, and the cash and carry, electricity, what's this rates, and all these odd things. Oh, I've got a delivery of a cup of tea there. Yeah, so that was my foray. So I guess I understand its emotional importance. It wasn't very successful. It didn't have a chain of stores. I did experience the change it had when the Tesco's opened up nearby, and we saw that shift. And we also kept open for many years longer than we should have probably done commercially, because people depended on us, and that is business, right? People continue, and that's actually why I feel I have a real passion for just communities and business and the impact it has. It's incredibly valuable, and we need to promote that and support it. So that's my background. I did end up I went to university, did an accounting degree, and got a job. I fell into a job in insolvency. That's everyone in our game does that pretty much, because no one really knows what it is. It was a great job in the West End. I was thrown into the world of business failure, and it's a pretty hard world in terms of what's an analogy? Probably, you know, if you're a person that maybe gets a diagnosis and you've got to go and see a cancer specialist, you know, you will worry about what they might say. You'll worry it's the worst. You don't know. It could be fine. That whole experience is traumatic. You probably waited too long. And then when you go in there, and it is tough sometimes, you know, it affects so many people, not your own. And there's probably a shame associated with failure. How did I let it get this way? So I'm in that world, as well as the world of the people that go, what do you mean I'm not going to get paid? Yes. What do you mean you're not going to deliver my product? What do you mean I'm going to lose my job? What do you mean that, you know, I'm going to lose my house? All of these things. It's complicated, and it's people.
Yeah, and deeply emotional, right? So on one hand, it's about facts and figures. And on the other hand, I think you said something earlier about life is business and business is life. One's very lacking emotion, and the other one is essentially pure emotion. How do you wrestle with those two elements?
I think you need a lot of emotional intelligence so one of the skills that you've got to quickly there's degrees of IP, there's degrees of professional everywhere. You do your exams, and, you know, I did my numbers, I know my balance sheet, I've done my tests, I'm pretty adept at all that stuff. The thing they don't teach you is the people bit, and you don't really get exposed to the people bit. Are probably a bit like driving, you know, it's different when you get on the road on your own. And so I was a young insolvency practitioner. I took insolvency appointments from the age of 27. So I was a kid. What I've learned in life is the sooner you throw yourself into the the space of making mistakes, but trying your best to avoid them, but making mistakes. That's when your learning begins. There is an age thing. For many years, people didn't take me seriously. I had a little bit of hair back then. You know. What was going on reflection is I've been an insolvent. I'm 45 soon, and I've been in business since a child. Insolvency is from a graduate, from 20, and I've done every exam that you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
But the people bit doesn't change. So what teaches you is throwing yourself in, being sincere, caring, misjudging, making mistakes, learning, and continuing to do that.
Yeah.
Every person's different. Every stakeholder situation is different, even if it looks vanilla. And I've spoken to them all at various stages, so I can put myself in their shoes.
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing. And I think you have to be clear with them about where things stand, even if it's unclear. Explain why you're unclear.
Yeah.
You've got to help manage their expectations. And frankly, you've got to be tough enough to deal with the flack.
Yeah.
I leave a scenario typically with my insolvency hat on. So you're talking about trade, where no one's really happy, but I've got the best result possible in the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the collection side, it's different. This is a new space. It's great when you can get some money in, and and you've pulled it forward, and they've got some cash flow. It's wonderful when I've had a call and I put them in touch with Steve, who's an experienced area director, relationship manager of, he wouldn't like me to tell you how many years, but he goes, do you know what, Tom, I found some 3 or 4 great solutions here. We're going to be able to refinance this. And yes, there might be a bit of a cost to it, but this is going to get them to the point at which that's going to happen and they can grow. And what's even better is when Steve's calling me up when it doesn't come via the insolvency. He goes, there's a business that's doing really great. It's growing. We've been able to provide, introduce them to a lender that's been able them to go to the next stage.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. So there's lots of stuff that comes in a very positive way.
So that's good. So it's not a business. I think there's a reputation, or there's a perception in the marketplace of insolvency practitioners being quite mercenary. And what you're saying is you're providing you provide that legal solution that's mandated,
mm-hmm.
but you're providing there's the potential to come out of that the other side. I think when we've spoken before, entrepreneurs, it's a really brave thing to start your own business, right? You've got to be brave.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And if you knew what was involved, truly what was involved, you probably wouldn't do it, right? I think you have to feel, but I have to say, just on that point, the thing that struck me is courage, right? Maybe an element of stupidity, frankly. Sometimes you kind of have to be optimistic in the face of adversity, but not completely stupid, right? This is the problem. And one of the spaces that, when people throw good money after bad, they don't realize that they think they're trying to rescue, but actually they're stopping their potential to start again or reinvest. And that's a lot of my coaching. But to set up a business, it made me understand what it was like to be on the other side. Obviously, I was a kid in a family business. I understood the emotions, didn't really understand business. I ticked all the boxes. I know the rules. The rules assume a perfect world.
Yeah.
And you're faced with someone that's had to deal privately with an imperfect situation. A lot of business owners that I've met are not people that would have done brilliantly. They're not chartered accountants. They're not. And actually, most of the professionals I've met aren't in business. They bought their own job, me included, right? So I'm not really in business. So a lot of the entrepreneurs that I meet may have not done so well at school. May have just had some courage. And the ones that have been successful typically to a point, actually very successful sometimes. They might have got dyslexia. They might have had ADHD. All of that diversity of people. I think there must, in my experience, must be a high propensity of people that are neurodiverse in the entrepreneur space.
There is, very high. Yeah.
So and this is just from my own experiences. Hundreds and hundreds of directors come through this. There's a lot of like dreamers. I've wanted to open up a coffee shop and realize it isn't, and they're in and out, and that's fine. There needs to be that space. To see how they operate making quick decisions with limited information, courageous decisions, is a real privilege that I've had in my time, and probably I'll write a book about it. But the thing that was always there is courage to do what you need to do, even though it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be in business, that has got to be a big part of your journey. And you can be a very nice person and do that. You don't have to be hard-nosed. In our industry, you touching around that, yes, there are an element of hard-nosed people in our game. There are different tools for the box. There are hard-nosed lawyers, there are hard-nosed, but Paul and I, actually, one of our probably USPs is that we've always been regarded as nicer IPs. But be under no illusions, we do what we have to do, but we can do it with care and empathy, and we don't take joy in it. We just know it's necessary to get the best outcome for everyone involved. So I'm not a natural IP emotionally. I'm pretty good when it comes to my ability technically and experience, but it's never easy to work with someone that's in a difficult place.
No, it's not. It's not. So let's come back to you a little bit, because we're talking about what your business does and who it does it for. What about you yourself? What's your business journey been like? So what about your growth pains? What business lessons have you learned over the years?
Wow, lots of things there. I'm navigating it at the moment, friend. I feel like I'm going through a midlife crisis every day. Okay, so for me as a person, I'm in my mid-40s now, and I think there was something that happened at 40. I think I qualified and did the things that I needed to do in the years. There's a time scale. I'm a family man first. I've got the gift of 4 young children. I've got a puppy this week, so that's a new one for me. Brand new little puppy, Wilma, and I've got a wonderful wife, and they're kind of the priorities. They're the foundations which we have. Family and life, business and life. When I had children, that takes time and energy. And for me, I guess I thought, that can change people. For me, it made me more ambitious with my time and impact. So my business partner coincidentally had children a bit before me, but around the same time. So we've got young families. And please excuse me, as I say, I've got a cold, so everybody knows. So that's who I am first and foremost. But I'm also a problem solver, and the one thing that I gave up when I was younger, I reflect on this more recently, is I used to love art and making things. And my older brother, I've got 2 older brothers at bankers, and my older brother, who's 13 years older than me, said to me, I'll never forget him saying, he said, art's going to get you nowhere. What are you doing? And I didn't really I was good at other stuff. And I said, well, I've got to pick my GCSEs and stuff. He said, bin art. I said, well, what about being an architect? I said to him, I thought, I'm building something and it's quite design focused. Probably the only thing I would have got an A in, and it was the only A I got a GCSE, to be honest, is design. And he went, do you know how long it takes to become an architect? I said, I don't know. He said 7 years. And I went, wow, that's a long time. Yeah. So do you know how long it took me to become an insolvency practitioner? It probably took me longer. Took me longer than that, because it takes you. I went through university, then I had to do 2 or 3 years, and then I had to wait a year, and then I had to do another year, but it was the same sort of time. And I was fast. I qualified at 26, 27. That's fast. So what I've done is I've done all the things that I was supposed to do. What I'm trying to be is my 10-year-old self again. So on a personal level, that means embracing creativity again, but with the knowledge, with the technical knowledge and skills that I've learned and I'm good at. And that's been a really interesting thing for me. So a lot of the ideas, and so I suppose maybe between Paul, I'm probably more like strategic and thinking about the future, but Paul's much more tactical and on the ground, and we meet as a really strong team. We're very different characters, take very different perspectives, and we always negotiate ourselves to a solution. There isn't a dominant force. We're probably collectively a dominant force. We're now trying to, but we only realize that our skill set's limited. So I'm a team player as well. So I'm ambitious with what we can do, but I wouldn't normally do this sort of stuff, Matt, to be honest. I wouldn't normally tell everybody, and I don't do much social media. I probably should do more of that. Actually, I just want to get stuff done, and I want to get us moving forward, because that helps more people, achieves more. And I just want to do it for creativity's sake, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to challenge myself.
So if you were to wind the clock back to when you were at school or uni, and you you told me earlier that you kind of fell into this in the first place.
Yeah.
Is there a one key learning that you would advise your young self?
It's a really difficult one, because I've kind of ended up in a roundabout way. So I had ideas about setting up businesses when I was younger and doing all those things. I felt actually getting a job in insolvency was a bit of a necessary backward step in my head at the time. I just thought, this is a bit difficult. But in reality, I've learned a hell of a lot in this industry. It's been challenging me in lots of ways. Just my communication with people, my comfort. I deal with entrepreneurs that build success, but they've never really, often they've maybe the first time they've really dealt with failure and really dealt with lots of complicated stuff. They may have had a team below them sorting stuff out, and now they've got to get involved. I'm really comfortable in that space now because I've done it a lot. So I suppose at this point, I'm now making the flip. I'm trying to be, and it's hard, I'm trying to be more of an entrepreneur and more creative. If I go back in time, I'd have probably, it's really hard to say because I'm doing all right. I'm pleased with it. But I would say trust your instinct a bit more. Start painting sooner. You can do both. You can be creative and you can be structured, and some beautiful stuff happens between the two. Yeah. Architecture is probably the point. A building needs to stand up, but it can be beautiful and it has an impact. So I didn't realize that value then. And also play with some of those ideas a little bit more than there's lots of people that will tell you, that's a bit risky. I remember when we started our business in 2007, our branding was like an olive lime green. Everyone went, "Ooh, that's a bit edgy." That was 2007. You got black, red, or blue. Yeah. And then, funny enough, everyone went lime green. And then, now we're orange. There's that thing. It doesn't really matter.
All right. Okay. So have you got any plans that you'd like to share about the business? Things moving forward for you?
Yeah. So I think the biggest transition for us is really building a leadership team. We're actively investing and trying to and growing. So, what I'm trying to do now is solve the problems I have as a professional services owner. People, running a flexible workplace, considering well-being, all of those things that are just such an important skill. And so we've got a HR director now who's amazing. I've worked with Lou for many years, but actually never worked with her in such a proactive way. So being proactive with people. That's a big transition for us. Got an FD. I'm an accountant. I know numbers. We were instinctive, but now we're modeling. We're doing the things that you need to do. So we're sort of foundational building for growth. We're spending time with technology. Technology is a big thing that's coming, but actually, who in our business was doing technology? Most professional services businesses. Oh, we've got an IT company out there. Yeah, they're great. They'll set you up. They'll do your voice over IP phone system. They'll do all that stuff. We've got Sue or we've got Bob. They're great with computers. So whenever we get a new bit of software, they're the one that champions it. We've got a technology guy in. We're going to build that out. And because we're going into this AI space, we're redoing our plumbing, but we're doing it not just focused on insolvency. One of the things I'm doing it focused on cash flow and multiple service lines. So the big thing for us is growth and sales, and how we do that as a business, because I've got a bigger business with more skill and opportunity. But probably our weakest area, and the area that we need to work on, is improving how we present, presenting at the level that we actually are. We're not, just to track back, Paul and I have been always good practitioners at heart. Selling has not been a thing, branding. We're relationships people. But as a professional services group, there is a space for that. And we need to make that catch up. So that's our biggest learning for our biggest focus for the next 3 years.
Because it sounds to me, just to summarize from our conversation just now, it sounds to me that you're not in the insolvency practitioner space as I would normally regard it. It's more the business recovery business that you're in. It's not the end of the road. It's how to recover out of it, which is a very different mindset from the standard insolvency practitioner mindset that I've witnessed in the past. It sounds like you're trying to get people to help them continue their journey, as opposed to it being the end of the road, which is a very refreshing perspective to have.
I'm mindful about that kind of judgment. I know what you're saying. I know the perception, but the reality, there's a perception in the marketplace from history, and the perception is, unfortunately, insolvency is a process. There's a legal part of it, so there are kind of limitations. So there tends to be two sectors. There's like turnaround sector, and they don't have insolvency practitioners involved, and there's insolvency. And there's all this stuff, but the reality is we are in a much more fluid world. Things are changing at fast pace, and we need to have an open mind. I do want I want the best outcome in the circumstances for those that come to us and speak to our team, or to point them in the right direction. The reality is a lot of businesses that do come to us come too late. So I'm hoping that now we're in the space of, they're accessing us with finance, we're doing collections, we can be close to them earlier on. It isn't natural, as you say, because of the perception they're going to come to us. And what we will do is also, if they come to us in the insolvency space and it's not right, we've got a great place to put them. They might just need refinancing, and we'll always consider those options. So we do have more, but I've always had that focus. And so, but maybe the industry is perceived that way. But the flip side of it, to be honest, Matt, a lot of people don't go and get help soon enough. So it's a catch-22. A lot of accountants are being trained to provide compliance services, but how many of them are being an FD? So in reality, you probably sit down with a lot of your clients. Well, I've got an accountant, and they're great, but they're great at doing statutory accounts and maybe doing your tax comps and stuff. Doing your projections. Who's doing your KPIs?
It's looking in the rear view mirror. Driving a car by looking in the rear view mirror. And you can't drive a car like that. It's going to crash. So you're absolutely right. It's the statutory accounts, and then there's an FD role.
Just on the question, Matt, so when you look at the basic statutory accounts that you need to file, does any of it make sense to anyone? Like for a small business, your abbreviated micro company accounts. If I went on Companies House now and I was going to acquire an SME, and I downloaded the basic set of accounts that are filed, would I have a clue? And I can tell you that a lot of it's dross, because in reality, then I deal with an insolvency and we do this comparison. And and I'm not, it's not blaming them, this is the system. Assets are bought and there's a depreciation value assumption. Well, is it reality? It's historic. Well, what's happened to your work in progress since then? Well, it just goes up and down. The cash at bank figure was on that particular day, but we live in the moment. If you're walking down the street and a baker was standing outside with some samples of what they could do, and they gave you yesterday's stale bread on a stick, you wouldn't buy more, would you? And that's, for me, I look at it, I'm a trained accountant, and I look at it and go, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So what would it do to an entrepreneur? Does it encourage them to go, what more can I do? No. It's ended up being the software industry and an FD. So I think there's a lot that we need to think about in terms of educating and equipping entrepreneurs to look forward. I don't think it's their fault necessarily.
So listen, Tom, thanks so much for your time today. I want to have another catch up with you. Actually, I think we've just started to scratch the surface on some of the topics around this, because entrepreneurs need as much support as they can get, and many come into a space or a time where they go through struggles. It's very common, but there is a way through. So I'd love to have more conversations with you about how you can provide those services. So thank you so much for your time today, Tom. And let's keep in contact.
No, thank you, Matt. Thanks for your time. And sorry, it sort of there's a lot to cover in that area, but yeah, anything that encourages people to get help, frankly, that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's out there, and I'll be happy to help. And thank you for your time.
Right. Thank you, Tom. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.